This conference will now be recorded.
All right, folks, good evening. I'm going to do an introduction to the urinary system this evening and introduce you to the note packet that I posted today, as well as the PowerPoints, and go over some images with you. And then next week we'll get into the fully the urinary system as far as finishing up and getting more into the details regarding how the urinary system does what it does as far as maintaining homeostasis by regulating the volume of fluid present within the body. Okay? So we all know, and we've in lab there, we had, I showed you videos regarding and discussed with you that board regarding the urinary system as far as the kidney is concerned, and the importance of understanding that the kidneys filter blood and then produce a filtrate, which the majority of it will be reabsorbed, and then a little bit of that filtrate, approximately 1%, will become urine. Okay, so we're looking at, I grabbed a 2-liter bottle just to show you that, understand that we're producing approximately nine 2-liter bottles of fluid, which would be filtrate, per day. And yet understand that only less than a 2-liter bottle of urine is actually excreted by the body. Sometimes less, sometimes more, and also understand that different disease processes can affect the volume of urine that's being produced. But know that the urine output is important, because we also realize that the urinary system is involved in working with and can affect the level of blood present within the body, the amount of blood, the volume of blood present within the body. And know that if we have an increase in the amount of volume of blood in the body, we can increase the blood pressure, and vice versa. If we decrease the amount of volume of blood flowing within the body, we can also decrease the blood pressure. And this is how certain medications will work in order to lower blood pressure as far as increasing the urine output. Okay. You'll see here, as far as the kidneys are concerned, we have a pair of them. You can survive with one kidney. There are circumstances where you can have like a horseshoe-shaped kidney, where it's actually the two kidneys have been fused, and this is a genetic type situation here. And so that, yeah, there are different presentations that can occur. You can actually even have an additional kidney. So that's very frequent. But so there are different mutations and changes that can occur within the urinary system, and can allow for better production or actually decreased function of the filtration of blood and producing urine. You'll see here that we have, how does that affect the adrenal glands? Yeah, so the adrenal glands absolutely are really working in also part of the whole system, not so much as far as the urinary system, but working as far as homeostasis. And know that aldosterone is produced, and we're going to talk about aldosterone working with antidiuretic hormone as far as affecting blood volume and such. Okay, in particular, as far as how aldosterone can affect the horseshoe kidney. Okay, yeah, so that horseshoe kidney really, so it's just kind of an odd thing as far as a genetic variation, and how just the two kidneys are connected, but yet they still have separate ureters and such. So the ureters are draining that filtrate the urine into the urinary bladder. And so we'll have the two ureters. And just something to remember, I know it's kind of a silly thing, but understand, like ureter and urethra, sometimes students can get these confused and realize that urethra has one E, ureter has two E's, and so then you think of that there's two ureters, there's only one urethra. I don't know if that's for what it's worth, if that can help you at all. And again, the two ureters drain the urine into the urinary bladder. The one urethra will actually then drain and assist in you avoiding releasing the excreting the urine out of your body. So you'll see here, as far as the anatomy is concerned, so you'll have the presentation of the adrenal glands. So I have to look, and Megan, I would tell you that I don't recall, as far as the adrenal glands are concerned with the horseshoe kidney, where the orientation of the adrenal glands are located. I'm trying. It's been a little bit since I've reviewed the images of the horseshoe kidney. But I can look at that and let you know. I'm sorry, I don't recall off the top of my head, because really what happens is that you'll see that at the poles, right, really will be the area where the horseshoe kidney will connect. And I'm trying to remember if still there was an ability for the capper, like the adrenal glands, to be on the superior poles of the kidneys. I don't remember with that horseshoe kidney. I'd have to look it up. And you'll see here how we have then the two ureters draining into the urinary bladder, and then we have then the urethra here as far as for the female. And know that the excretion is involved as far as we're removing toxic and waste products from the body. Okay, so that's what's being excreted out of the body via the urinary system. And again, too, I mentioned to you regarding the blood volume as far as how that's being controlled via the urinary system. Okay, and how those salts, really the dissolved salts, these solutes present within the liquid of the filtrate, eventually becoming urine, how they can also affect what goes on as far as whether they're holding on to water. So antidiuretic hormone, ADH, produced by the hypothalamus and sent to the posterior pituitary, the neurohypophysis, how important that is as far as conserving water conservation with the aldosterone, with the ADH. And as a result of ADH, then we're going to then conserve water. So we're going to increase blood volume, which will increase blood pressure. Just to kind of keep you thinking along those lines. And then also pH regulation and production of bicarbonate and affecting the pH of the body. So the physiological pH of the body is a little bit alkaline, 7.3, 7.4, around there. That's where the body should have, as far as the blood is concerned, and the overall pH of the body should be that, as far as systemic functioning and such, and metabolism. The only acidic environment that's positive would be a slightly acidic environment on the integument, on the skin, on the epidermis, as well as a very acidic environment in the stomach. Also know, as far as these different hormones that are being produced, as far as renin and erythropoietin, involved in the ability to affect, in case of renin, blood pressure, and in case of erythropoietin, the red blood cell production via the red bone marrow. And then also vitamin D production, and really as far as working with the active form of vitamin D, the urinary system. The cholecalciferol is the type of vitamin D that's active and important for proper functioning within the body. And we know this as far as the color and such, and coloration of the kidneys and such, and knowing that the kidneys have a capsule, and they have and I'm going to go right to the image right here right now. So realizing that the kidneys have this capsule, have the cortex, right? The cortex is in the outer portion of the kidney. Then we have here the medullary region, right, where we have these pyramids. And you recall from the lab that these pyramids will contain, the pyramids and the medullary and cortical regions both contain the nephrons, the functional and structural unit of the kidneys that will actually filter blood and produce the urine. They're present within, and their tubular network is present within both regions. I'm going to show you an image of that in just a moment. And then how really these striations, do you see the striations present within the medullary region of the of these pyramids? What's producing those striations are the collecting ducts that carry the urine that will drain into these minor and major calyces, which will drain into this renal pelvis, which will then drain the urine down the ureter to the urinary bladder. Okay? So again, those striations are the collecting ducts that are present. Now let's see here, as far as, so we see here these two different types of nephrons, a cortical and a juxtamedullary nephron. And you'll just see the difference being that there's more, the cortical is in more of the cortical region, and you'll see here just a small portion in the medullary region of the pyramid, whereas the majority of the tubular network would be present within the medulla of the kidneys for the juxtamedullary nephron. And you'll see here that their distal convoluted tubules will drain into the collecting ducts. And again, I said the collecting ducts arise for this and give to the appearance of the striations of the pyramids in the medullary region. And here we have the renal papilla, these openings for the collecting tubule, the collecting ducts, which will release the urine into the renal pelvis via the minor and major calyces. Okay. And here you're seeing also that you didn't see before is that this tubular network, this is the network that's going to contain the filtrate. So you'll see here in tan, this is the tubular network that contains the filtrate. Okay. And then you have all these blood vessels that are covering throughout the tubular network. Well, why is this important? Well, this is important, folks, so that we can have reabsorption taking place of the different, whether it's primarily it's water, but also the solutes and such also can be reabsorbed. Nutrients can be reabsorbed, okay? And again, the majority of that filtrate is being reabsorbed into the body, into the cardiovascular system, and then only a very small percentage will then enter into the collecting duct and become the urine that we could excrete out of our bodies. Now here's just another image and just seeing here as far as the cortical nephron and the juxtamedullary nephron. So look at this here, please, as far as approximately 85% of all the nephrons in the body and in the urinary system are the cortical nephrons. Only a smaller percentage, 15% approximate, would be the juxtamedullary nephrons. You can just see the difference as far as where primarily the cortical nephron is just what it says. It's primarily present within the cortex and only a portion of the nephron loop, aka also known as the loop of Henle. You'll see here as far as the juxtamedullary, primarily the majority of it's a longer loop, right? And the majority of it then would be present within the medulla medullary region. And you're seeing here how the collecting duct, and you'll see that branches are feeding the collecting ducts, and then here we have that renal papillae going into the minor calyx. Minor calyx. Multiple minor calyces will drain into a major calyx, and that major calyces will then drain into the renal pelvis, which will then go into the ureter, okay, bringing the filtrate. I want to just see here. Here we go. Okay. All right. So here we looking at as far as what takes place as far as the glomerular capillaries, okay? And realizing that the glomerular capillaries are what are that glomerulus itself, that knot or ball of capillaries present within the glomerular capsule, and we would say the combination of the two would be called a renal corpuscle, okay? So the glomerular capillary, glomerular bed, it's a capillary bed. In addition to the glomerular capsule, we call that structure itself, we would call that a renal corpuscle, okay? The uniqueness of this capillary bed is that an afferent arteriole is bringing blood to the capillary bed, and an efferent arteriole is draining the capillary bed, which will then in turn go to these paratubular capillaries. So the paratubular capillaries are what will then be surrounding the tubular network and be involved in absorption, reabsorption, okay? And then in turn, then we have here the interlobular, right? Interlobular would be between each of the pyramids. So the interlobular vein, so you'll see here the arcuate veins, the interlobular, that's another AKA for the cortical radiate veins. So I apologize that I forgot, you get a little confused sometimes. The interlobular are AKA, you should write this down, the cortical radiate, CRV, cortical radiating veins. And I'll show you where they're located. So let's look over here at this image, just so you don't get confused. I apologize. So these are cortical radiate veins and arteries in the cortex, okay? So remember, when we're bringing blood to the whole pyramid and the nephrons themselves, it's sure. And you'll see it right here, folks. So Sam, you'll see it right here as far as you have here the interlobar, so you see that term here, interlobar, right, would be between each of the pyramids, interlobar, Okay? Interlobar are between the pyramids. Then we have the arcuate vein and arteries at the base of the pyramid. Arcuate veins and arteries are at the base of the pyramid. The cortical radiate veins and arteries, you see them right here, cortical radiate vein, cortical radiate artery, they're in the cortex. Okay. This, I posted this image purposely because of the fact that you can see here as far as how this goes, as far as renal artery, segmental artery, interlobar artery, that's here, arcuate artery, that's here, cortical radiate artery, that's here, afferent arteriole is bringing blood to the glomerulus, that knot or ball of capillaries. The efferent arteriole is draining that knot of capillaries, right? That capillary bed, the glomerulus. And then the afferent arteriole then will bring blood to the peritubular capillaries, which surround the nephrons, okay? And they are involved in reabsorption. Then it goes to the venule. Then we go to then cortical radiate vein, arcuate, so cortical radiate vein in blue, arcuate vein in blue, and then the interlobar vein there, and then we go to the renal vein. There's no segmental vein. I mentioned that in lab, but just to remind you of that, okay? So that's, you can see over here. Interlobular, okay, sorry, thank you, Megan. So the interlobular is the cortical radiate vein and artery. An AKA, also known as cortical radiate, whether it's artery or vein, can also be known as an interlobular artery or vein. That's these right here. Okay. I like the term cortical radiate. You're welcome, Megan. I like the term cortical radiate because I think of the cortex, because that's where they're located, and they're radiating into the cortex. So it just, to me, that makes more sense. It kind of gets confusing if you say this is interlobar, this is interlobular. It's correct, but I think it's easier to remember them as cortical radiate. That's me. All right, so this is an important, so I would tell you that this is an important slide to review and to go over in this right here, and to rewrite this information so that you have it down, so that when you get into the lab, you're like boom, boom, boom. So know that, right? So know that this is the renal vein. There's no segmental, but you'll see here, as far as segmental, it's first renal artery. Segmental artery will then bring to the interlobar artery. Whereas with the renal vein, it's just draining from the interlobar, it's just draining to the renal vein. Okay. Yeah, so let's take a look at this for a moment also. So as we're looking at this, so just giving you a review again, here's that afferent arteriole, interlobe. So no, they are not, Sam. So they are not. Let me go back. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to confuse you here. So the slideshow, so an AKA would be, so this would be interlobar. This is interlobar right there. There's no AK for that. That's just interlobar. But the cortical radiate vein and artery, see right here? See how it's in the cortex? These are cortical radiate veins and arteries right here. Okay. These that are going into the cortex, in the cortex itself, those are also known as interlobular. I won't ask that of you, but you should know that that's what that is, though. Okay. So interlobar, you're welcome, Sam. So interlobar, that's what it is. But cortical radiate, that's AKA also known as interlobular. Okay. All right. So going back here regarding the glomerulus is concerned, so really, as I'm looking at this structure right here, the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule, those two structures together, we would call the renal corpuscle. RENALCORPUSLES. It's like muscle, except it's puscle, corpuscle. So renal corpuscle, that would be the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule. And so what you're seeing here is that the afferent arteriole is bringing blood to this capillary bed. Okay. Then the capillary bed is being drained by the efferent arteriole, which will then go to the paratubular capillaries. Those paratubular capillaries are what are, so here we have the image of, and you're seeing in white. In white, these are the paratubular capillaries. They're surrounding all of that tubular network because they're involved in reabsorption, okay? There's some secretion that takes place going back into the filtrate, but primarily it's reabsorption of the water primarily, and also of nutrients and solutes like electrolytes and such, salts. Okay? And it's good that I do this with you all right now, just as an introduction, so that you can think about this a bit and review and go over it. And then this way, next week there, when we go in more detail regarding the notes and such, it'll come a little bit more clear to you. Okay. So as we're looking at then this image, so that we can see that, okay, so here in this area where we have the glomerular capsule, okay, it's collecting the fluid from the blood. So fluid and some different wastes and different solutes, different electrolytes and such are being released into that space, okay? So plasma and different solutes are being released into there. If cells are being released, so two cases. So whether we have a proteinuria, so proteins being released, they're large structures. They shouldn't be going out. They should not be filtered. They should be staying within the blood, right? So proteinuria, that's not a good thing. Also hematuria, blood cells entering into this the filtrate. That's also not a good thing. Those are both signs of kidney disease or kidney disorders, okay? And so that's a problem. So we should only have some solutes and fluid entering in, and then it enters into this tubular network. This is the proximal convoluted tubule. And this is where we're going to have reabsorption back into the blood because we have those paratubular capillaries covering the tubular network. So really the tubule right here, it's not part of the vascular system, okay? It's containing only filtrate and solutes, right? That contain solutes and liquid, water. So secretion is putting substances back into the filtrate. Reabsorption is taking material out of the filtrate and putting it back into the blood, being reabsorbed back into the capillaries that are surrounding the paratubular capillaries surrounding this tubular network. I want to just stop for a moment and just I hit mute, by the way, sorry. Stop sharing, here we go. So I'm coming right here right now to talk to you about secretion, reabsorption, and secretion. It's very important for you to understand that reabsorption, we're taking from the filtrate and out of that tubular network, and we're bringing it to the blood, the capillaries that are covering the tubes, okay? The tubes contain the filtrate. If I put back into the tubes, that's called secretion. And that one, by putting back into the tubular network, that's going to eventually then become urine. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Because those terms are very important, reabsorption and secretion. So really what's taking place is that there's filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. Here we go, 3. there's 3 things that are taking place: filtration, reabsorption, and secretion to eventually form the concentrated urine. Does that make sense? Any issues? Okay, all right. So let me just go for a few more minutes and then we'll be done for the evening. Share my screen. All right, so I want you to see also that as far as the bladder is concerned, okay, so good. Okay, so you're just seeing indeed also as far as the different tissues that are going on. Understand that the urinary bladder has rugae, so it can expand. So just like the stomach has rugae, the urinary bladder has rugae, and it allows for expansion. okay? And then you'll see here, as far as these two holes, this hole here and here, are where the actual ureters will drain the urine into the urinary bladder. And then we have here, as far as the what's leaving would be the urethra, okay? And you're seeing here, so look at this here, transitional epithelium, and that transitional epithelium, right, very unique, and that also has the ability to expand, okay? Look at this a little bit more detail as far as, so if this has a prostate gland, this would be a male, okay? And it's prostate, not prostrate. Prostrate is the position that you assume. Prostate would be the gland. And you'll see here, as far as, so we have here, as far as internal sphincter, and then we will also have external sphincter, which will be involved in voluntary control, right? So internal sphincter, we have no voluntary control over. The external urethral sphincter, we do have voluntary control over. And here you'll see the prostate gland. So when the prostate gland gets larger, becomes larger as a result of benign hypertrophy or cancer type situation will take place as far as cancerous lesions, then do you think this can affect the ability for the male to void? And can it affect as far as having that constant urgency to want to the need to void? Yeah, indeed. And so they will actually go in and shave portions of the urethra in order to allow for free passage of the urine. Catheterization can take place if there's issues and such, and this can be quite challenging. Okay. Now, I would like to now just open up the notes for you all, and then I'm going to end class for today. So let's see here as far as, here we go. So folks, you'll see here that we have, I think there's 11 pages of these notes. So I would like you to start to review them and go over them. Next week, I will just talk step by step through, but you'll see here as far as, again, urine formation, filtration, reabsorption, secretion, right? Very important to remember those, boom, boom, boom. And this is what will lead to then concentrated urine, okay? I've also given you some hormones and such and talked about pH, and we'll talk about as far as affecting blood pressure and such. The key to recall is that blood volume, if blood volume increases, blood pressure increases. Blood volume decreases, blood pressure will decrease, okay? I'm showing you a little bit of some different pathologies and disorders and such. I provided some images on this, as well as talking about dialysis and such. So yeah, so we'll discuss that and go over that the next class there.